Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service on behalf of a special partnership with Alaska Public Media. It is Friday, July 29th, 2022. And if you would like to reach me and share any interesting questions, information, perhaps a photo, you can reach me at peter.chan@noaa.gov. And looking across the country, if you'd like additional weather information on top of what I provide, especially for some other part of the country, you can go to weather.gov. That is the National Weather Service's online website presence. You'll come to a point-and-click map of the continental U.S. with Alaska and Hawaii to the lower left. And by clicking on anywhere on that map, you can come up with forecasts, watches, warnings, advisories for anywhere in the country. If we take a look at the map this Friday afternoon, we have flood watches and various warnings continuing for portions of eastern Kentucky where they had catastrophic flash flooding, at least 18 people killed with others still missing there. We have further west flood watches for areas of the interior southwest. This is the time of year the monsoon rains. Scattered thunderstorms can produce very heavy localized rainfall that can lead to flash flooding. And then the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, into northern parts of California, northwest Nevada, under various heat advisories and excessive heat warnings. Temperature in Portland, Oregon will reach the upper 90s today. A number of spots could see temperatures in excess of 100 degrees there. But for us in Alaska, nothing like that. We are in a west to southwest flow aloft as we get into the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, and that brings an overall somewhat cooler and occasionally wet pattern. Not drastically cold, but not as hot and dry as it was here much of June and into early parts of this month. The next surge of moisture is currently working its way up along southwest parts of the state. Along the Alaska Peninsula, we're watching a secondary low develop now near and just southwest of Kodiak Island that will continue to track northeastward and weaken through the weekend, but that's going to spread more moisture further north up along, especially through the south side of the Alaska Range. I mentioned yesterday we are now at a period we call the noctilucent cloud season that typically ramps up as we go through July into early August. I'll add a few bits more of information to that. And overall, the extended forecast, the mainland is looking cooler through the west, a little wetter in the east through the first half here of August. Looking in the far north, Dead Horse, some light rain, fog. As we get along that Arctic coast, there has been this low cloudiness and fog and some occasional rain at times mixed with a few snowflakes. 39 degrees there this afternoon. Kodiak, further south, where that low is developing on the North Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula. Low clouds, fog, and some light rain, 57 degrees. And there could even be a rumble of thunder in the vicinity of Kodiak Island as some heavier showers move through there here through the late afternoon and early part of tonight. Talkeetna, mostly sunny skies. You can see those cirrus clouds increasing from the southwest in advance of that next system that's currently working its way through southwest parts of the state. 72 degrees as of 2 o'clock this afternoon. Also Anchorage Bowl enjoying a very pleasant afternoon with temperatures in the lower 70s. And then finally, over there in through the Panhandle, Gustavus Dock, cloudy, 61 degrees, and some rainfall totals going back, Thursday into Wednesday night. Elfin Cove picked up over 1.5 inches of rain, as did Juneau Weather Service office. In Sitka, they're coming in at about 1.4 inches of rainfall from the system here through the latter portion of this week. Still some lingering showers will be possible here through the course of the weekend here across the Panhandle, though maybe not quite as steady or as heavy. And looking at the sky, I mentioned the other day about noctilucent clouds. These are night shining clouds. They're the highest clouds in the atmosphere. They are 50 miles above the Earth's surface. Most of the clouds we see are associated with the troposphere, which is the first 6 miles of the Earth's atmosphere. So these are way up there. They're caused by an interaction of meteorite dust with traces of water vapor. And the reason noctilucent clouds have become more visible, more frequent in the last decade or so has to do with the number of rocket launches occurring, because these rocket launches introduce these trace amounts of water vapor in the high atmosphere, and it allows then these clouds to form and actually start occurring further south. They used to be a phenomena in the summer months only in the high northern and southern latitudes, but we're starting to see them now down into the mid latitudes during June, July, into early August. So keep your eyes peeled, because we still have the chance of seeing some here as we go through the next couple of weeks. Fire weather. The areas of rain are currently working up through the southwest portion of the state, and still some lingering showers in the Panhandle. It will become breezy through parts of the Alaska Range passes, otherwise fairly dry for the interior, and we're going to see some more rains moving up into south central areas, especially south of the Alaska Range and through the Copper River Basin as we go into Saturday. Fire danger is still high to very high across portions of the eastern part of the mainland, especially say Yukon Flats and the Tanana Valley, but at least not nearly as high as what it was here at the beginning of the month. And if we could keep this west-southwest flow and have it shift just a little further north, it very well could end the fire season up there for areas along the Yukon River Basin between the Alaska Range and the Brooks Range. Not likely to happen yet, but it's at least better than it was. And we can see that next surge of moisture working its way up the Alaska Peninsula through Kodiak Island. There's a secondary low taking shape there that could produce a rumble of thunder as we go through this late afternoon through the evening hours. A weak low pressure that's currently in the north central Gulf will continue to fall apart, but a few light showers linger there across parts of the Panhandle. Later tonight, early Saturday morning, we anticipate that low to be approaching the south side of Kodiak Island. It's not going to be especially strong, but it will continue to work its way through the western Gulf and gradually weaken Saturday afternoon. That's going to help spread the moisture further north to along and south of the Alaska Range, and especially along the Gulf Coast, and enhance some showers there along the Panhandle, so that by Sunday we could see a few lighter showers up there along areas of the Alaska Range in the west central parts of the state, and then certainly back through the Panhandle. Lows tonight generally in the 50s across much of the southern parts of the state. Saturday afternoon with the cloud cover and some lighter showers in vicinity. We expect highs only near 60, upper 50s near 60 along the coast, lower 60s inland, but that'll keep temperatures up above 50 in most areas come Sunday morning. And then again Sunday afternoon with some cloud cover and some showers or areas of light rain. Temperatures both in the Panhandle, south central areas will be confined to the lower mid 60s at best, compared to the 70s that we've enjoyed in south central the past couple of afternoons. And cooler in the north, near 40 along the Yukon River, upper 30s, mid upper 30s there along the Arctic coast. Still could see some 70-degree readings Fairbanks eastward toward the Alcan border. Sunday morning lows generally in the 30s along the Arctic coast. Generally 40s to near 50 degrees along the Yukon River, 40s back there through the Seward Peninsula, and then temperatures Sunday afternoon generally in the 60s through the Yukon Valley, though we could still see a 70-degree reading there around Eagle and on over toward Fort Yukon. I mentioned this morning Eagle had a low of 30 degrees, so there were indeed some areas that could have picked up some patchy light frost this early Friday morning in parts of the east central and northeast interior. And then for Saturday, southwest lows near or just above 50. Cooler along the coast, upper 50s to near 60, and generally 50s along the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutians. Sunday morning lows, lower 50s, southwest interior, and temperatures may get around or a bit above 60 there as you go up the Yukon and Kuskokwim River basins, but otherwise generally 50s along the coast and back through the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutians. Here's the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook August 4th through the 8th. Generally below normal temperatures across much of the mainland into the Panhandle. And as we go in toward approaching mid-month, the 6th through the 12th, we see an area kind of centered there along the west-southwestern interior. So we're not looking for any really warm temperatures, nothing like what we had here, the above normal temperatures that occurred in June and early July. This is definitely a cooler pattern, more favorable to reduce the fire danger. And looking at precipitation, the 6 to 10 day outlook August 4th through the 8th increases the chances of precipitation there, east central areas toward the Alcan border around Fairbanks on up toward Eagle. It also could include some isolated thunder at times. And then as we go into toward mid-month, August 6th through the 12th. Generally speaking, precipitation could average a little above normal. The eastern half of the mainland, as well as down through the southeast panhandle. As we look a little further back toward the southwest, maybe a little drier conditions where precipitation could average just a tad below normal from Kodiak Island down across the Alaska Peninsula. But at least right now, no super signatures there of any big warming trends coming anytime soon.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Let's take a look at your aviation weather now. If you have a flight planned Saturday or on Sunday for this weekend, we have an area of low pressure that's splitting, one that's moving up into the southeastern Bering Sea between Nunavik Island and the southern tip of the Alaska Peninsula. A secondary low is going to develop on the North Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula, just southwest of Kodiak Island, and that'll enhance some rain showers, even potential for some isolated thunder as we go through this Friday afternoon and evening. Further on toward the east, though, we expect widespread IFR conditions to continue across the Panhandle on Saturday morning, as well as along the Arctic coast, some lower cloud cover and fog. And then as we go into areas further west, we anticipate IFR conditions to spread up there along the southwest coast to be rather widespread Saturday afternoon through the Aleutian chain, again continuing along the Arctic coast, and then spreading further northward up to along the south side of the Alaska Range and into parts of the interior due to cloud cover and some rain that'll be spreading northeastward as that low continues to shift northeastward up along Kodiak Island there to just between there and the Kenai. Otherwise, widespread IFR conditions persist Saturday with some scattered light showers there and through the Panhandle. Sunday morning, we still see IFR conditions across the Panhandle, back on up, especially south of the Alaska Range into south central areas, including the Kenai, Prince William Sound, Cook Inlet, back across the southwest, rounding up through the Bering Strait, and then again, low cloudiness and some areas of fog persisting along the Arctic coast between Utqiagvik and Kaktovik. Sunday afternoon, we do expect IFR not to be quite as widespread as we saw across south central areas or the Panhandle, but still persisting along areas of the southwest coast and along the eastern Arctic coast. Anaktuvik Pass should generally see VFR conditions on Saturday. Adigan Pass will also hold on to VFR conditions. As we go further south and west, we are anticipating IFR conditions to be spreading northeastward up along the west arm of the Alaska Range up to the south side of the Alaska Range into south central areas and also back toward parts of the interior southwest. Look for rainy pass to start out VFR very early Saturday, becoming IFR as that moisture and some showers creep northeastward. Same thing, windy pass, generally VFR through the day, but as you get down there and fly south of the south entrance, expect to encounter IFR conditions. Those are going to be bumping up against the mountain as that moisture spreads northeastward. Isabel Pass should generally have VFR conditions, but again, IFR conditions creeping up into the Copper River Basin the further south you fly there of Isabel, as well as Mentasta passes on Saturday afternoon. Tanita Pass, look for VFR very early Saturday, becoming IFR. And then along the Gulf Coast, Portage Pass starting out with the IFR or VFR conditions very early in the day, but then becoming IFR as we go through midday in the afternoon. Chilkoot and White, much of the Panhandle will hold on to IFR conditions with scattered showers throughout the day on Saturday. Freezing levels are highest over the southeast Panhandle, as high as around 14,000 feet. They trail off to around 10,000 feet south central areas, Cook Inlet and the Alaska Peninsula, and fall back to around 4,000 feet along the Arctic coast. Greatest threat for just some isolated moderate icing will be over south central areas, west arm of the Alaska Range, 12,000 to a flight level of 20,000 feet. We could see some areas of icing above 6,000 feet there in the northwestern Bering, and then between 10,000 and a flight level of 18,000 feet across the central and western Aleutians. Upper level jet stream winds at 30,000 feet. There's a broad belt of 75 plus knot winds out of the generally a westerly component from the Alaska Peninsula to south of the central Aleutians, where there is a 95 knot wind max at 30,000 feet. Then coming down to 700 millibars or so We don't see much in the way of wind across the mainland, but 40 knot westerly winds out there across the eastern and central Aleutians with winds of 45 to 50 knots south of the Aleutian chain in the North Pacific. And then finally down to 3,000 feet, we see a low pressure circulation there in the northwestern Gulf, 40 knot winds south of that along the Gulf North Pacific interface. And then back out toward the central Aleutians, we see winds of 35 to 40 knots out of the south. And that'll translate to at least the potential for some considerable moderate turbulence, surface to 4,000 feet there as we get back toward the central and western Aleutians. Otherwise, the rest of the mainland should be generally turbulence-free, nothing widespread or significant anticipated there. So if you are able to get out this weekend, certainly enjoy yourself and have a safe flight.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining us once again is our good friend Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. He is here and has been here many times to talk to us about weather satellites and how those can help Alaskans understand our weather, how we can do better detection, keep more people safe from things even like volcanic ash. But today, Eric, you're going to talk to us a little bit more about weather satellites and how that can keep Alaskans safe and protect our property from wildfire, right?
That's right, Dave. Today's topic is where there's smoke, there's fire. And thanks for having us back again to Alaska
Anytime.
Weather. Well, weather satellites have a lot of different instruments on them. It turns out that the electromagnetic spectrum has a lot going on in it, and only one part of that is visible light, what we see.
Right.
Weather satellites, of course, report that. Today's topic is wildfires.
Okay.
There are some people who say that in Alaska in the summertime you don't have severe weather. These people are usually from Oklahoma or somewhere, and F5 tornadoes tend not to occur in Alaska.
Right.
People have also said what we do have in the summer. What is Alaska's severe summer weather can be hydrology,
Right.
flash flood and erosion in the mountains and things like that, and fires, wildfires.
Absolutely.
Those were here in 2004, certainly remember that. We've got an example here from 2014. Now it was a quiet season overall, but in May, down on the Kenai Peninsula, we had a wildfire on the Funny River, and this is a satellite image from a polar orbiter that went right over Alaska, and we can see the plume of smoke coming out of that fire on the Kenai, curling down. It's caught in the wind.
Right.
It goes down toward Kodiak Island, curves around. You can see it circulating around a low pressure system that's in the Gulf of Alaska.
It was a beautiful picture.
Oh my gosh.
Except there was a fire.
There's a fire there. The nice thing is with this satellite image, you can tell where the fire origin is, where the smoke is coming from. And it's a color image. We're looking at the wavelength spectrum of about 0.4 to 0.7 micrometers or microns. That's what the human eye would see. If you were riding on the satellite and looked down, you could see this kind of an image.
Right.
So that's pretty nice. But it turns out there's more to the electromagnetic spectrum than just visible light.
Okay.
You've heard of infrared, ultraviolet, that kind of thing. If we move into longer wavelengths, let's go to one specifically, 3.7 micron.
Okay, 3.7.
Why worry about that one?
Okay.
Well, we've got an example here. 3.7, it turns out, happens to be very sensitive to a certain temperature range, temperatures where fires burn.
Okay.
And so we've got an example zoomed in a little more from that same Funny River fire down on the Kenai Peninsula, and we can see that you get up into a few hundred degrees Fahrenheit,
Right.
and that's where the colors are. We can see there on the Funny River fire to the west and to the east, almost a horseshoe shape there, is not only we're seeing where the fire is in a general sense, but specifically where it's the active fire
That is where
front.
it's burning right now.
And it's
Amazing.
3.7 microns is the important temperature there.
Okay.
That's right.
So this is really important to firefighters on the ground, people that are making plans and directing the firefighters on where they need to go and cut the trenches and keep people safe.
You know it. If you want to fight that fire, you got to know where it is.
Okay.
You got to know the leading edge. We've also got a movie loop, nothing quite like animating it in time.
Yeah.
You can see the fire spreading out over time with a succession of film or succession of images. Now this is one channel, 3.7 micron. You know, we looked at that color smoke image before.
Right.
And that's actually a red, a green, and a blue. That's how you get color imagery. What if you took 3 different wavelengths in the infrared? You went from like 2.2 micron, 1.5 micron, up to 3.7. You mix them together, you get this other kind of color image, which is even a better way to sharply bring out the details of where that leading edge of the fire is.
Okay.
You'll note, though, in the infrared, guess what? We don't see the smoke. That's too bad. And on these movie loops, you can see the clouds go by. These channels can't see through clouds. The lesson is there's no one perfect solution. You got to have the visible, got to have some of that infrared single 3.7 channel, some of the infrared mixing to help get a different perspective. Another one, we've talked before about a fun channel called the day-night band.
Yes, one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, and in Alaska in the winter, it's great. We got all this darkness. The day-night band is so sensitive to seeing light. You can see features that otherwise aren't available. Now in Alaska, when you have a forest fire, it tends to be light out all the time.
Right.
It's our summer. But we can go down south to the Rim Fire in California in 2013. Now, okay, it was in California, not Alaska, but Alaskan crews went down to fight that fire, so we can talk about it here on Alaska Weather. Here we have a 3.7 micron channel shot of the rim fire, again kind of a horseshoe shape showing that active fire front down there, and then we'll look again to the day-night band, the visible light, and then you can see how the fire is all bright. You can see the active fire front and actually the city lights over there too. Turns out that the cities, while they're active in a social sense, are not really hot in a fire sense. So they don't show up in the 3.7 micron. They're not hot like a fire is, but the fire in the cities look the same from a visible light perspective. And a fun thing here too is that we can see the smoke plume going north from the rim fire on the day-night band. So if we were ever to have, like in 2004 in Alaska, you get dark at night, we still had an active fire season that year.
Right.
That was, you know, that really bad year. The day-night band didn't exist then, but if we had fires now in August, we could use it then. The lesson here is weather satellites, they offer many different wavelengths of light. Some are used for different purposes, and some of these that we just looked at tonight are especially helpful here in Alaska to find and to track the behavior of these wildfires so the crews can go out there and do their jobs.
Sure, sure. So a satellite toolbox for the firefighting crews and the fire weather forecasters, and it just underlines how important satellites are, especially for Alaska and our mission for the National Weather Service to protect life and property, and also to enhance the national economy. So wonderful stuff there, Eric. And people can look at pictures like this anytime by going to gina.alaska.edu. You'll find images there all around Alaska at various times of the year, and not just about fire weather, but volcanic ash and smoke and anything else you want to check out. They're always beautiful pictures and always interesting to look at no matter what time of the day. Thanks again for joining us, Eric. We appreciate it and welcome you back anytime. For this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder. See you next time. And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and let's start with the sea ice edge here to close the show with the marine weather segment. We continue to have some ice remain there, especially just off of the Arctic coast, and it'll be a slow melting process here as we go through the mid and later summer period. Nevertheless, though, we'll continue to see that ice melt off. A lot of open water out there through the Chukchi Sea, with the exception of along the Russian coastline where a fair amount of ice remains in place. Let's look at the southeast panhandle coming up for Saturday. Inner channels, winds will be out of the south-southeast 10 to as high as 15 knots through Lynn Canal. Waves generally a couple of feet, but could be as high as 3 feet there through Lynn Canal. The outer Gulf Coast, we are looking at winds from the south-southeast 10 to 15 knots and waves generally right around 4 or 5 feet. On Sunday, winds will be a bit of a split there in through the inner channels, southeast to south, Petersburg up through Juneau and Skagway. As high as 20 knots, Lynn Canal, waves anywhere from a couple of feet south of Juneau and through the Petersburg vicinity. 4 feet Lynn Canal, and northwest winds 15 knots there down toward Metlakatla and Ketchikan with waves of 2 to 3 feet. Onshore, west-southwest flow 10 to 15 knots south of Gustavus through Craig, waves generally 4 to 5 feet, and a bit of a mixed bag southeast to offshore northeast flow there in the vicinity of Yakutat westward with waves of 3 to 4 feet. Northwestern Gulf winds will generally be out of the east around 15 to 20 knots. Waves 3 to 4 feet. Northeast winds 10 knots, Prince William Sound, waves a couple of feet there. And middle lower Cook Inlet could see winds as high as 20 knots northeasterly there at the entrance of Cook Inlet with waves of perhaps 4 or 5 feet. On Sunday, variable winds in Prince William Sound to 10 knots, waves a couple of feet. The flow is going to try to turn more southwesterly throughout Cook Inlet to 10 to 15 knots, waves a few feet, as well as off of the Kenai with waves of 4 to 5 feet. Across Kodiak Island, northeasterly winds 20 knots at least early Saturday through Shelikof Strait, becoming more southwesterly 20-25 knots on the North Pacific side, and generally southwest winds around 15 knots. Bristol Bay down to north of Cold Bay with waves a couple of feet. And then across much of the area, especially the upper peninsula and Kodiak Island, winds will be out of the southwest 20-25 knots, especially North Pacific side, turning southerly down through the lower portion of the Alaska Peninsula. Either side, Bering or North Pacific, southerly winds 25 knots, waves 5 feet north of Cold Bay and 6-7 feet there south of Sand Point. Across the Aleutian chain, eastern Aleutians, southwest winds 15 to 20 knots. Turning more westerly through the central Aleutians, and then easterly 25 knots west of Adak. There is going to be a low creeping up from the south that will produce some gale force winds to 40 knots, especially across the central Aleutians come Sunday afternoon. Look for waves to build anywhere from around 12 to 17 feet west of Nikolsky on the North Pacific side, and upwards around 10 to 13 feet west of Nikolsky through Adak on the Bering side. Looking at the eastern Bering, southwest coast, out of Norton Sound, northeast winds 20 knots, turning northerly 20 knots through south of St. Lawrence Island and St. Matthew. Waves generally 4 to as high as 5-6 feet. Variable winds 10 knots in the vicinity of St. Paul and St. George, with waves there a few feet. And on Sunday, we're looking for easterly winds out of Norton Sound. 10 knots, waves a couple of feet, and then winds will be southeasterly to 25 knots south of Nunavik Island and back toward St. Paul and St. George with waves of 6 to 7 feet. And then finally along the Arctic coast, winds 10 to 15 knots out of the east. They'll turn more northeasterly across the northwest coast to 15 knots, and then increasing 15 to 20 knots down through the Bering Strait out of the north. Waves through the Chukchi Sea generally around 3 feet, could be as high as 4 to 5 feet as you get south of the Bering Strait and the north side of St. Lawrence Island. And then on Sunday, winds do come down compared to what they have been this past week along the Arctic coast. Easterly winds to 10 knots, Kaktovik, westward through Utqiagvik. They'll turn more northeasterly and then northerly down through the Bering Strait and along the northwest coast, 15 to 20 knots, with waves of 3 to 4 feet there in through the Chukchi Sea. And a quick check, Saturday afternoon's weather map shows a area of low pressure over the western Gulf, rather weak, and another one off the southwest coast of the vicinity of Nunavik Island. Here comes that stronger low that'll cut across the central Aleutians and push northeastward through the lower Bering come Sunday afternoon. Thank you for watching the show, and be sure to join me tomorrow night.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.